What's going on, comic fam? It is your boy, the bearded comic bro, and I am joined by comic creator and probably the dopest beard I've ever had on the show, Stonie Williams. Welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It's funny because my last interview I just did with creator Justin Bartz, and he also has a pretty epic beard. And I'm like, now I got you on the show. I got to stop having you guys with beards on my show. You intimidate me.
Yeah, some beautiful facial hair going on.
It is. How long has that taken you to grow?
I trim it occasionally, but last time I shaved clean shaven was about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I trim it occasionally. I woke up one day, it was my birthday actually 10 years ago, and I needed to change, and so I walked into the bathroom and shaved, and I don't know, it just was one of those weird things, and I came out looking like an actual baby, like not just young, but like a giant baby, and it was terrifying, and so I haven't shaved since.
I know that feeling. I think mine was probably about 5 years ago because I used to let it go even longer, and I basically was pretty clean shaven, and then I cried almost. I was like, this never happens again.
Yeah. So. It's funny how it becomes part of your identity. Like,
right? Well,
people know you as the bearded guy, and that was, I don't know.
And it doesn't help that like I can't shave it now because like it's in my name. Like I'm like, oh, the beard,
right? Yeah.
And then there's no beard. People are like, who are you? Well, we could talk about facial hair all day. But
really,
you have written some sweet comics lately that I've gotten to see. So you are the creator behind Villainous, and I wanted to just kind of, before we jump into that book, I always just like to know, because I'm always curious, I want to know, how did you get into creating comics? Like, what sparked that for you?
So comic books were a thing that have always been a part of my life. My mom worked at a comic book store when I was young. The guys that worked there were, my uncles, and one of which was R.A. Jones, who is a comic book writer, and he's written for Marvel and DC. He did some series for Malibu Comics, and so comic books, especially on the retail side, were always there growing up. But it wasn't something that I thought I could do as a profession until just the last few years. I actually started running a comic book review blog and podcast with my best friend Aaron. And we had indie comic book creators come up to us and ask us to review their comic books. And that's what happened with Mad Cave, and how I found out about them. They contacted me through our podcast Twitter and said, hey, we've got this book we're about to announce. We'd really like it if you would review our book. And so as I looked into them, I realized they were doing their first talent hunt. And it was one of those things that I talked about, and I had these ideas for, and I was talking about it nonstop with my wife, on the way I do it if I did it. And finally she goes, this is really important to you. You need to shut up and just do it already. Just submit. And so I did. It was actually, I'd submitted to a talent hunt 2 years previously for Top Cow. And I've written a couple of scripts on my own, but then that was it before starting to do the Mad Cave talent hunt. So it was something I was really new at, but I fell in love with the process, learning how to do it for the Top Cow talent hunt. And the different ways different writers write scripts and approach it. And some of them are very loose about it. And it's more like a conversation between the writer and the artist. And some of them are very strict about script form and include links and lots of detail. And some of them are just very, like I said, loose. And so it's interesting to see the different ways writers approach this stuff. So I just absolutely fell in love with it and ended up winning the talent hunt.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. That's all you got to do. You want to get into comic books, win a contest.
Exactly.
Fantastic. So was Villainous what you wrote? Was that what you won the contest, or did you write something else for the contest?
So the talent hunt was actually, you could write up to 2 scripts for already established Mad Cave properties. And at that time it was Battle Cats, Midnight Task Force, and they were just about to announce Knights of the Golden Sun. And so I did one set in Battle Cats and one set in Midnight Task Force, and they were just, I think they were 6 or 8 pages each. And yeah, it was a lot of fun to do. And I might like release them and show people what I did to win at some point, because I really enjoyed those stories. So
That's cool. That's awesome. Well, it completely takes it out of the next question I was going to ask is how did you get connected with Mad Cave? So after what was the process then after you won the talent search? Like, was it like instant that they're like, all right, now you're going to start to write? Or what was that kind of process after you found out you won from then to getting to your book?
For sure, yeah. So I remember sitting on my couch. My wife was taking a nap. My kids were playing video games, and I got an alert on my phone. I got an email from Mad Cave Studios, and I read it probably 6 or 7 times before I really understood what it was saying. And I immediately jumped up and ran in there and woke up my wife and was like, I freaking won. And first they asked me what my page rate was, and I had no clue. Like, I never even dawned on me that that could ever be a question, so I never even considered it. I actually messaged Ryan Cady from Top Cow Comics on Facebook, and I said, Ryan, I don't know what to tell these people. What what am I like what numbers should I be working with here? And so he gave me some suggestions and what different companies had paid him. And he's like, I don't know what their budget is like, but this may be the number you want to aim for. And so then we said it was a late entry. There was only 2 weeks left in the talent hunt, and they'd actually already picked the winners. And so I was a late addition. They added me to the winners. There was only supposed to be 4 writers, and they added me at the last minute. So I didn't have an artist paired up with out of the talent hunt, so they had to find me one. And then it was kind of a staggered process because they didn't want all the books coming out at once. So they found an artist. Him and I really clicked, really hit it off, but unfortunately schedules couldn't line up, and so we had to move on and find another artist. And eventually, Jeff had just finished up on Show's End, and they knew they couldn't let him go, so they picked him up for this project. And I couldn't have been luckier. I mean, like, I had more of a American anime kind of style in my head for the book,
Yeah.
but Jeff knocked it out of the park. Like, he exceeded every expectation I had with this. Like, all of the things I really wanted the book to be, he still hit those with his style. So, and then, I mean, you were talking about start to finish. It was a long process and a lot of waiting before they said, okay, go. And I'm a stay-at-home dad, and so I didn't have, there wasn't a whole lot of talk of deadlines because I was knocking it out pretty quick. And then we had some issues with artists, and so that took a little while longer. And then COVID hit. I think we were supposed to have like an April release, and then COVID hit, so it got pushed back to October. So it has been a really long process. I won in 2018, and my book is just now coming out. So yeah, but I mean, I couldn't have had a better experience with Mad Cave. Everybody there has been so incredible and warm and welcoming. And anytime I've had a question or anything's come up, they've been on top of it. Mark London, I remember the first meeting we had with him. It was a Skype meeting, and my editor Geo and Mark London were on the other side of the camera, and I was stuttering. I couldn't find my words, and they were asking simple questions like, "What comic books do you read?" And I was like, "What's a comic book?"
What?
And I stopped and I went, "I'm sorry, you guys. I'm really, really nervous." And Mark said, "Okay, take a deep breath. It's okay. You've already got the gig. Hard part's over. We just get to do the fun stuff now." And it's really been that kind of experience the whole way through. I mean, both the Chris's, Fernandez and Sanchez, have been just absolutely great guys. I absolutely loved working with Gio, my editor. She really got the story, and just emailing back and forth with her has been so much fun. We'll do music suggestions and stuff, and when I realized that she really got the story I was trying to tell, it was so exciting to be on the same page with her over that, and I couldn't have asked for a better experience.
Dude, that's so cool. Like, that's just awesome to hear. Like, that's a cool story. Like, I get excited. I'm excited for you, and I'm like, like, that's awesome, man. I'm just. The real question though is, how happy was your wife that you woke her up from her nap to tell her?
She was once she got what I was waking her up for, she was okay with it. So wasn't too bad.
I just know that's a risky move sometimes. So that was So
It was her idea to the talent hunt. She couldn't be too mad about
right,
this.
and I was like, "This
She
is your
started
fault.
it, right?
You'll get your nap now because you made me do this."
That's right.
So let's talk then. Let's talk about the book that you were putting out through Man Cave Studios. Uh, you have released issue 1. Issue 2 is coming up soon. We're talking Villainous. I got you on the show. What is this about? What's this story about?
So Villainous follows a newly minted sidekick to their world's premier superhero team. This is their version of the Avengers, their versions of the Justice League, the coalition of heroes. And they're the ones you see on the news. Everybody's got their posters all over their walls, right? And Tilly's kind of grown up around this and this hero worship. And now she's getting to be a sidekick for one of her favorite heroes, Showdown, who's the powerhouse of the team, right? He's the heavy hitter, and he's great with the ladies, and he's always there for a photo op. And she quickly learns that the life of a sidekick isn't quite as glamorous as she expected, and then she stumbles into some things she wasn't meant to hear, and it snowballs for her from there. So,
and I got to read your first 2 issues, and they're great. I mean,
thank you.
that's a great way to describe. Where did this kind of idea for you of like, because it seems like, hey, we've got the heroes that we all worship and that people want to get connected to that aren't as the same, really what we would expect them to be. Where did this kind of idea for this story originate for you?
Well, Maggie first approached me with a couple of ideas for a comic book, and the first one was a superhero genre comic book. And the kind of the base idea was the good guys aren't exactly what they seem to be,
Okay.
and the bad guys aren't exactly what they seem to be. And it's funny because back when I was doing the Top Cow Talent Hunt, I always heard, don't do superheroes. When you're breaking into comics, the market is cornered. You're not going to be the next Superman. You're not going to be the next Spider-Man. You're never going to see your character on the side of a lunchbox, right? Don't do superheroes. But then when they approached me with the superhero comic book, I thought this presented a unique opportunity because it could be whatever we wanted it to be.
Right.
We could twist things around. We could turn them on their heads. We could, shine a light on the things we don't always love about superhero comic books while celebrating the things that we do. And that was important to me. And when growing up in a comic book store, superheroes were everywhere. And so I thought, this is something I really could do. And yeah, everybody thinks they can do superheroes and everybody's got their own cape idea, but I really thought that we could do something different with this. And Gio really got the message I was trying to bring across. And hero worship and blind loyalty was a really big thing for me. Especially as an adult, we run into all the time our heroes not quite living up to the pedestals that we put them on, and that can kind of lead to a dangerous way of thinking, especially when we maintain that blind loyalty to these people. And so I really wanted to showcase that and shine a light on that.
And I think, and your main character, Tilly, just I think embodies that kind of like, something that we all are, right? That kind of naive, like, hey, this is something we've all wanted to, but shoot, you're writing comics. I'm doing a YouTube video in my basement about comics. Like, this is like, so we get that idea of, being attracted to like the idea of getting to hang around superheroes and stuff like that. What's it like kind of playing in that world with you with your main character, like kind of taking her the route that you are?
It was a lot of fun to bring in. We first meet her, she's so naive and wide-eyed, and Jeff's art really showcased that and really embodied that. And so I very much wanted her to be the reader's introduction to this world. As she's learning this, the reader's learning it along with her. And I think that helped a lot with the world building and making the character relatable and making people fall in love with Tilly. She's easy to project on. And it was a lot of fun. And also kind of heart-wrenching. Like, we put her through some shit. Like, we put her through, yeah, and it doesn't get any better for her as the series goes on. So there were lots of times that Gio and I swapped emails back and forth that were like, "Are we really gonna do this to her? Are we?"
Like, it's your baby that you gotta create it. You're like, let's make it miserable for her. Like, That's kind of rude.
Exactly, yeah. And we very much fell in love with this character. She's somebody that we really enjoy, and um, we both, Gio and I, really fell in love with. And so it was heart wrenching to put her through such things. But I'm really excited for people to see the journey that she goes on and where she ends up.
So issue one's out. Issue two's coming out in November.
November 11th.
November 11th. Okay. How how long are you? Do you have an end date in mind for this series? Like how many issues? Are you kind of just like it's going to be a self-contained for right now, and then we'll see where it goes? Where are your plans for this series?
So we've done 5 issues. I believe they're all done. Um, it's a 5 issue arc, and then after that, we'll see where it goes and how interested people are. I hope. I mean, my goal here was to give people an ending they were satisfied with, while leaving enough things open that we could continue with the story if we wanted to. And one of the great things about Villainous is that even if we don't continue with these characters, the world is big enough to expand on. And then we've also got backstories we could do, and so there's so much that we could still do with this. But we wrote 5 issues, and I did intend to. I like endings, and so I wanted it to be a satisfying story that even if this was all there was, you could walk away from, and it had a good beginning, middle, and ends, and was self-contained. Now, Mad Cave is good about when these series do really well, picking it up for another one and expanding on these. So we'll see. It depends on how well it does and how Mad Cave feels about it, how the fans feel about it. Yeah.
Well, this is your first comic, and that you've actually gotten put out on out into the shops and in paper and stuff. And it's kind of like you're like, we'll have to see how the fans receive it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but fans seem to receive issue one pretty well because you guys sold out. Is that not correct?
Yeah, we sold out. First printing sold out, and I'll be honest, I was so nervous. Like, as excited I was for Jared and Dryfoot for them to sell out their first printing, I felt a lot of pressure on my book. Like I was like, that what a hell of a book to have to follow up. And I was really really nervous. I mean, even worse than people hating it is people not giving a shit, right?
Right.
So for them to actually buy it, for this to sell out, just was a huge weight lifted off of my shoulders, and I feel so grateful and so lucky to have this insane experience. And we're waiting for the announcement to see the second printing and what they might do for a variant cover, which is insane to me. Variant covers of my book, like, I mean, there's the standard cover and then at least 3 others. To have variant covers of my book is very wild to me. That's very strange.
Well, it's got to be cool, right? Like first comic, it, it sells out, and not only does it sell out, but you have variant covers. So like they're like, hey, we want to put not just your first cover, but we want to put 3. At least you said 3 others. Like that's awesome, and I think that's a testament to Mad Cave, knowing, seeing what you were putting out there and saying this is going to be quality. And then it also is, I think it's confirmation as you see the response from the comic readers. So that's got to be really cool.
Absolutely, yeah. And the readers have I mean, I almost every day since the book released, I've had somebody message me on Twitter or mention me on Twitter and talk about the book and that they loved it. And I haven't. I mean, even people who found things that didn't always work for them, they found something they loved about this book, and that means the world to me. I mean, for people to read it in the first place, it's just wild. But for them to like it too, just is incredible. I had one gentleman who tweeted at me and didn't like it, and I tried to handle it well. I was like, well, that's fine. Superhero books aren't for everybody. Matt Key's got a lot of stuff. What comic books do you like? And then he went on to list all of the things about mine he didn't like. So, but if that's the worst experience I've got, then I'm doing pretty good. So.
And that's tough. That's gotta, as like that also is tough. So sometimes I think when you hear it, right, you put your heart into something and people are like, hey, I'm like, you're trying to be polite about it, and they're like, oh, but here was yeah. But man, that's awesome that you're able to handle that with grace. And that I'm sure that's not something I would do real well. I'm like, I get a thumbs down on a video. I'm like, who did it? I want to know. I'm like,
Yeah,
what region of the U.S.? Oh, you're not in the U.S. Cool. I'll find a ticket. I'm find you.
that's right. Yeah, no, it's funny. It's a weird thing because I'm not like that with most other things. Since I started writing Villainous, I've also been learning to color comic books. I've been learning to letter comic books, but my writing is one of those things that any feedback on, I just soak it up and I love every second of it. Even the critical stuff and things that don't work for people. When it comes to my writing, I want to be better, and so I just take every bit of it. It's fine, but with my coloring and my lettering, if something's off, I'm like, oh, this is crap. I'm terrible, and it really take it to heart. But for some reason, with my writing, I'm just not that way about it, and I can take it, roll with the punches. So
Well, and I think that's something like, if someone has issues with it, you can always look at things, right? Like take it with a grain of salt and be like, okay, is there something that I as a creator can improve on? And if there is, cool. Thanks for letting
yeah,
me know. And if not, deuces. Like, it's cool. Like, so I think that's a good way because that's how we grow and that's how we learn and
yeah,
evolve. So we don't stay stagnant and stuff. So I think that's a really great model to have, an approach to
uh,
take.
sure. And I mean, being my first comic book, like the first thing I've ever written, like to have the reception I've had over it, for people to like it as much as they have, and I mean, any problems with it that anybody finds, I'm just like, okay, but I'm just starting, right? This is only going to get better from here, right? So it's just been incredible.
Yeah, you're right. Like this is your first sold out year. Like this variant coverage, like, okay, okay, if this is where the start is, it's growth. Like this is like, where you can take it. That's really cool. Um, do you have anything else kind of in the works outside the world of Villainous right now that you're working on?
Yeah. So I've been writing with an indie publisher called Ashcan Comics Pub. We do short stories company with art. Nate Lindley runs it, and him and I have been doing a book called Vala the Beast Heart, which is Viking themes, medieval fantasy.
Okay.
And we've been putting that out a chapter at a time. It's been a lot of fun to do with him. Um, excuse me. The first issue, he actually made a game with that comes with pogs and little character cards, and like the 90s kid in me is like over the moon to have my own slammer, right?
You said Pogs, and I'm over here going, wait, what? I know 2020 has been weird, but wait, Pogs are a thing again?
Like it was so wild when he brought it up, but it works, and it's a great little game. It came with two cards, and one of Pogs and one of that explains how to play the game, and these little character cards, and it's the Vikings versus the Kraken, and you can play it solo or you can play it against somebody, and it's just a great little mini game that I think has a lot of replayability, and you can play it, as an adult or with kids. It's easy to understand, and so it was just something that was brilliant to me. And also I got my own pogs. So
So you're saying like it's totally acceptable for a grown man to be in his basement playing Pogs by himself? Like that's cool.
I do.
All
So
right, you heard it here, folks. So people, you see me if I post I'm playing with Pogs in the basement. You can't make fun of me because Tony said I could.
absolutely, absolutely. And there's another book from Nate that I'm lettering for him and learning how. And Justin Birch, who lettered Villainous, has given me some pointers, and so I'm trying that and having a blast with it. Even if it looks terrible, I'm having a lot of fun. So and learning, like now I understand why letterers hate writers. Um, and doing the dialogue for this book, I only have myself to blame for all of these words I'm having to put into balloons. So, but I'm learning, and I think it'll only make me a better writer from there.
Well,
And then, go ahead.
I was going to say, it seems like it's smart, like as you're getting into comics, to understand the ins and outs of the other aspects, right? Like as a writer, it's only going to make you a better writer to understand what a letter is going to want. And until I think you go through that, or even as you said, trying to do some coloring, trying to do some inking, once you start to see like, oh, when I tell them to do this, they hate me.
Yeah, like just learning the basics of just these two things has really changed the way I approach a script, and the way I speak to the other team members in a script, understanding what they're looking for and what they need from me better has been a really great learning experience. Um, And then on the coloring side, David Galliano, who did Savage Bastards, asked me to color a story for him in an anthology called Cthulhu Invades Oz. So you've actually got two Mad Cave people, two Mad Cave writers on the same title, but I'm coloring this time. So it was a blast to do. And Cthulhu Invades Oz has got, like, I think there's over 40 different people involved. Um, People from Scout and Image and Source Press and Action Lab and of course Mad Cave, just all over the indie world has come together to make this book, and it looks incredible. The stories are amazing, and I'm so proud to be even just a small part of this with some of these names. It's been incredible.
Yeah, and so we were talking off camera. I had Jonathan Hedrick on a show a couple episodes ago, who's a writer for Scout, who's doing the recount, and he's involved with this project as well. And he was talking about coming out. So is it out? Is the Kickstarter live now for this?
Yeah, the Kickstarter's live. Uh, Went live like 2 nights ago.
Okay.
A bunch of us got on a Zoom meeting and did a little live stream for it and got to talk about it some, and that was a lot of fun. The gentleman who put it on, Travis Gibb, actually had no idea that I was a writer until halfway through my coloring. We were talking about it. He was giving me feedback and stuff, and he was talking to David about it. And then David goes, "Oh yeah, by the way, he's got Villainous coming out in a few months." And Travis was like, "Oh, I had no idea he was a writer. Like, we could have given him another story here." But so that was fun.
That's awesome. So all the links to these stuff, the Kickstarter and things will be in the bio of this, in the description and things like that. I don't want to take up too much of your time, so I'm so grateful that you are, just taking some time to talk with me about stuff. Is there anything else that you kind of want to just hit on before we wrap stuff off?
Yeah, it just dawned on me. There's a Threadless store. Have you seen this? The Threadless store for Mad Cave.
I have.
I was trying to find it. The cover. They've got masks of Sedition, the guy behind me here, on the Threadless store, and I could not be more happy and more crazy about the stuff that they've put out. When they, right before they released the store, they emailed me and they said, "Is there anything you want to see on the store?" And I said, "If we don't do masks modeled after Sedition, it will be a missed opportunity. Like, this just screams we need to do." And it was one of those funny things because I wrote the script months and months before the quarantine.
Right.
So for him to have a mask that's styled, just like we're all wearing outside nowadays, I just thought was kind of neat.
That's cool. Yeah. And so the link for that store will be in there. You've got masks, you've got everything on there. There are t-shirts, right? It's
the shoes. I was so excited for the shoes. Like,
now the one thing that you need a lunchbox still, because someone told you if your first comic was a superhero, you'll never see it on a lunchbox, and you can say boom in your face, I can't see it on a lunchbox now.
That's right. Yeah.
Lunchbox.
And I would carry it with me everywhere. I'd send it with my wife to work, and yeah.
Got to get the lunchbox with the thermos. I mean,
thermos,
we already got the Pogs. Now we can bring back the lunchbox with the thermos. We'll get her on a Trapper Keeper. We'll just keep this whole like 90 threadless. It'll be great. It'll be awesome.
I'm there for it. Yeah, absolutely.
So, man, Stonie, this has been a blast. Thank you so much. Again, for just hanging out. Where can people find you, follow you, see what's coming up? Because you've got a lot of stuff in the works, and if they just want to know how to stalk you.
Right. Bald Bearded Bard across just about every social media, Facebook, Instagram. I have an art station where I post my coloring, Twitter, obviously. So Bald Bearded Bard everywhere.
Awesome. And again, it's all in the description of this video. Stonie, thank you so much for coming on. If you guys are watching this video and you haven't picked up Villainous, you already missed the first print. Get the second print. Hop in on this now, because I'm telling you, this is a story that I'm excited for. Back to Kickstarter, that's we talked about. There's so much that you can do. So if this interests you at all, check it out. But thank you, Stonie, for hopping on. And
thank you.
As always, gang, hopefully you can find some time to curl up, grab a book, and nerd out. Peace.